Good morning, guys. This is Sarah Williams, the CEO of Midnight Greenery. Today we're going to cover Article 5, which is marijuana product manufacturing service or facilities. So Article 5 of Chapter 306, which is the regulations for the marijuana industry or proposed regulations for the marijuana industry. Once again, if you're following along, the link is in the description to be able to follow along and bring up what we're talking about here. So once again, it's a really long article and it's a really in-depth article. So I really suggest that you print this out. If you intend to be a product manufacturer, or you intend to have something to do with product manufacturing, edibles, concentrates, anything besides cultivation, print this out and look at it and read it over line by line. I'm going to bring up just a couple of things in the essence of time that I think need to be changed or kind of questionable or maybe not good business acumen. So just some things to think about. So we start out on page 1 and it covers section 500 through 570. 500, of course, just says that a license is required, and really anything that is extract for sale, formulation, or manufacture any marijuana product. So here we're talking about concentrates, edibles, we're talking about RSO, any of that thing. Alright, so moving on. Now, some of the things it talks about the application. It says all applicable public health, fire, and safety codes and ordinance of the state municipality in which the applicant's proposed license premise are located. So in this case, this is something that is really governed by some health and public safety kinds of things with regards to food preparation and whatnot. It goes on to 505, facility privileges. Facility privileges really just states that a production facility can purchase from a cultivation facility or another product manufacturing facility. So that's how they get their product. And they can only sell to another product manufacturing facility or a retailer for that. And also I guess a production facility can purchase from a broker as well for that. Right? So again, transportation says you can only transport between retail and between production and retail, and then between production and production for that. So we move on to page 3. It talks about kind of a further definition of what extraction means, what production means in that. One of the things I'd like to see for consistency is it talks about this format in all of its extensive area line by line. I'd like to see that in the cultivation side. The cultivation regs seem to be a little all over the place and what the privileges are. And here in the production, it seems to be very well outlined. So I think the format would be nice to duplicate the production format into the cultivation side for that. Now, it says you can provide samples for testing and samples for retail negotiations of sale. Some of the acts prohibited. Once again, you cannot have a direct or financial direct interest in a testing facility. Right, again, what they're trying to do there is they're trying to say that if you own a production facility and you own a testing facility, then you have the potential ethical consideration or ethical issue where you could influence your testing results, where you could say, well, hey, there might be some contaminants in there and I know that, but I'm testing my own stuff, so I'm going to make it say what I want it to say. And that's what they're trying to avoid there, is to make sure that that doesn't happen. That, once again, it covers there in section E on page 5 that the tax has to be paid before you make the sale, not after. That has to be changed. It goes on to 515. Talks about what the actual license covers. So the marijuana product manufacturing facility with an extraction only license. So this is something where if you're just extracting, you're just you're gonna just create coconut oil, or you're just going to create hash oil or dabs. You know, what extraction only. That's it. So this particular manufacturing license is, I believe, $1,000 fee instead of the $5,000 fee for the regular production manufacturing. In this case, it says that it may not manufacture, process, cook, package, label, or store any marijuana product other than a marijuana concentrate. so that if you have an extraction only license, you cannot also make edibles in that sense under that license. It has to be the separate license for that. All right, or sell, distribute, or deliver any marijuana product other than marijuana concentrate to a retail facility or another marijuana product. Once again, under that license, you can only sell a concentrate. You can't sell anything else, an ointment, salve, edibles, nothing. It's just your bare root concentrate, just your bare RSO. Or your bare hash oil. It's not going to be something that's been combined with other ingredients at that point. That would be required under the product manufacturing license for that. Goes on further to talk about the application process and what's consistent. In this particular case, what's different here is that number one requires a copy of the food safety permit. So you do have to follow food safety guidelines, which I think is a good idea for the protection of the consumer. Of course, you'll have a diagram. You can have in-house testing, but that in-house testing is not allowed result-wise on the packaging. It must be a licensed certified testing facility, and that information will be on the label itself. In the operating plan for a production, it requires the equipment, solvents, gases, chemicals, each marijuana product that they intend to process. The product description must include color, shape, texture. You also have to get all of your products approved through the Marijuana Control Board. So when you provide your application, you'll have to provide a picture of it. You'll have to provide ingredients, process for how it's made. I don't necessarily think that you should do the process for how it's made, simply because that seems like a very solid trade secret that the Marijuana Control Board doesn't need to know. Once again, I'm always concerned about them stealing my trade secrets and sharing it amongst the world, and that necessarily isn't the best idea. Just not in my world for that. Now, let me shut things off here. Okay. So then we move on to health and safety standards. Covers that it falls under the Alaska Food Safety Code. Of course, you can be also liable to inspections, things like that. Marijuana handler permit and food safety worker training. So in addition to the marijuana handler permit that your licensee or your employees will need to work in the industry, they will additionally need the food safety worker training for that. Moves on to 535, which talks about restricted access areas. So anywhere that concentrate is produced, anywhere that any operation involving manufacturing, any storage areas, or any place that waste is destroyed should be considered restricted access areas, and those shall have full video surveillance at all times. Moves on to 540 to discuss marijuana inventory tracking system. Once again, we know that's going to be a part of everyone's business. It's going to be a necessary expenditure that's going to be needed and included in the business plan. Goes on to give a little more detail about how the product manufacturing facility will work with that inventory tracking system. Again, one of the things that I talked about earlier was the approval of concentrate products or approval of products by the MCB. 545 has probably the first uber controversial thing, in my opinion, is that the board will not approve any marijuana concentrate or product with THC potency equal to or greater than 76%. Why? Always my question, right? I always start out the question with why. Why 76%? Are they concerned about safety? Do they feel like 77% might harm someone? What happens if you make a hash oil that's a 82% consistency? Do you have to throw the whole thing away? Because you can't exactly break it up at that point when your oil itself is, your 1 gram is 80% THC. So I don't know and understand why. I think they've pulled that from Colorado. They've pulled that from Washington or something of that nature. I feel like it's more fear related than it is actually necessary to have a percentage there for that. But I don't know. So if anyone can weigh in as to why they think 76 or, in this point, 75% should be the highest THC content, What about medicinal users? Might medicinal users need higher, especially when it comes to pain management, higher concentrates? Inevitably, concentrates of higher THC will likely garner a higher price tag, but that's because they're more effective at getting the job done when it comes to medicinal issues. So, a good question there. Why? And what about ointments and salves? Does it matter if 80% THC content is in this salve that I have here? Does that matter? I'm going to put it on myself topically. It's not going to affect me psychoactively. I don't know. Good questions for the future. We move on to page 10. Page 10 covers Section C. When a licensed marijuana product manufacturing facility wishes to add a new product to its line, the marijuana product facility must submit a new product approval request to the board on a form that the board subscribes or prescribes, along with a fee of $250. So I feel like this process is going to limit innovation. I feel like as if, oh, well, I can only submit so many new product applications at a time at $250 a piece. It's going to limit how many people want to submit new products. I just don't, I don't know. I know 250 isn't a big number, but the way these regs are shaping up, it's not going to be a high money industry. People who have lots and lots of money, lots and lots of cash flow are not going to be flocking to this industry. It's going to be people that have limited kinds of resources and limited cultivations and limited kinds of smaller, Alaskan grown by all means, but smaller entities. So their cash flow is going to be limited. So again, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, but it's again a $250 fee for a 5-second process. Maybe not. Maybe a 15-minute process for the board to look at a new product and approve it. Is much like I said before with the name change, to have to submit a $250 fee to the board to submit for a business name change. The name change takes 10 seconds to review, be like, yep, that's good. But I just paid $250 for the board to take 10 seconds to review my name change. Just along those kinds of lines. Is it really a fee that's just a fee to be a fee? Or does it make sense? It's a good question. Okay. Moving on to D. A licensed marijuana product manufacturing facility shall keep its ingredient list and potency limits for any food product containing marijuana on file at the marijuana product manufacturing facility's licensed premise. What about tincture? Tincture isn't technically a food, but it's consumable. So maybe some more clarification in that word choice of food product. Because you can put tincture in a capsule, in a pill form. You could, but just because you swallow it wouldn't be considered food. So maybe a little more clarification on that one. All right, 550 goes on to the production. Before producing any marijuana concentrate for sale, the facility shall develop standard operating procedures, good manufacturing practices, and a training plan for each individual employed in an extraction process. Now, a lot of the problem that people are seeing with individuals who are considering coming from the black market into the legal market is that they're concerned about this concept of too much paperwork, too much regulatory. Because they've been in the black market forever. They can't do paperwork because that would be considered organized crime, right? So now they're being asked to write out all these plans and these procedures and this business acumen kind of stuff. And it may seem very overwhelming for a lot of them. But just get through it. And if you can't get through it, find someone that you trust, or a lawyer or a business plan writer, and have them write it for you. And take your thoughts and your words and put it on paper. But don't give up. Just because it seems like it's overwhelming because it requires so much, don't just give up. Just keep pushing forward and find those resources to get it done. All right. So we move on to page 11. Page 11 has another controversial issue that I do believe needs to be changed. Number 2, it talks about, let me give a little preference here. A marijuana product manufacturing facility may create marijuana concentrates only as follows. So 1, water-based marijuana concentrate may be produced by extracting cannabinoids from marijuana using only water, ice, or dry ice. Okay, you've got your bubble hash, that makes sense. Then you've got into 2, and 2 is an issue for me. 2. Food-based marijuana concentrate may be produced by extracting cannabinoids from marijuana through the use of propylene glycol, glycerin, butter, olive oil, or other typical cooking fats, infused dairy butter, and oils, or fats derived from natural sources may be used to prepare infused edible products, but they may not be prepared as standalone edible products for sale. I don't agree with this. For the consumer, I don't agree with this. The consumer needs to be able to purchase coconut oil and choose to use it in their own recipes or as a topical. They need to be able to make their own recipes, because typically, and I don't know, because the edibles market right now, as far as individuals that are jumping in, we don't know who's going to be in that market and what kinds of products they're going to be producing, but up until this point, predominant edibles products have been sweets, because sugar really, really does well to mask the taste of the product, or it's just, your typical cookies, brownies kind of thing. Now, I fully expect with a legal market that the innovation in Alaska will be stronger, and it won't necessarily all be sweets and cookies, and I hope not, because I know Midnight Greenery wants to carry much more healthier snacks. All of that being said, though, I believe that the consumer should be able to purchase standalone oils and standalone dressings and standalone things that they can make their own meals with. We don't need to coddle people. They're not. Now, education is important, absolutely, and education is required. One of the backbones of Midnight Greenery is education. So, absolutely. But to be like, oh, well, I'm sorry, you can't take this 16 ounces of coconut oil that's infused, and you can't read the ingredients that says use 1 tablespoon at a time, or 1 tablespoon is this many milligrams. You're unable to do that. You don't know how to cook. I don't know. I don't feel like it's good for the consumer. I feel like the consumer needs to have the option, if they want, to make their own. It's just like alcohol in that sense that, you bring alcohol, and you could put alcohol in your tiramisu, or you could put alcohol in, I don't know, your bourbon barbecue sauce for your chicken. You can cook with alcohol. And nobody cares. Nobody seems to be like, whoa, that's bad. We can't sell alcohol for cooking. So it's, in my opinion, because cannabis is not more dangerous than alcohol, you're running into a situation where the consumer needs to have the freedom to be able to do that. They need to be able to be allowed the option, if they want, to make their own edibles. Now, some people are not gonna. Some people are gonna be like, you know what? No, I'm gonna grab this prepackaged thing right here because it's been produced. I don't need to worry about baking it, whatever. But again, I don't think we should force it on the consumer to not be able to create their own edibles. There are ways that we can manage that so that they have to list ingredients, and it has to be very clear as to what is a serving size and how much milligrams is a serving size. And heck, keep it on the milligrams per scare level, whatever it is out here. We'll talk about that in a second. But just some thoughts with that. Okay, moving on. So it talks about solvent-based marijuana concentrate may be produced using hydrocarbons, N-butane, isobutane, propane, heptane, or other solvents. Approved solvents must be at least 99% purity and must be used in a closed-loop extraction system. So this is going to be that cost that we're talking about with getting started. You must have that upfront capital for a closed-loop extraction system. Some are going to be much more advanced than others. Some are upwards of $100,000, $200,000 a piece. Some you can get for, maybe $3,000 or $5,000. Just depends on how much quantity you intend to produce on a daily basis. Also, it must be produced in an environment with proper ventilation. Really just gives some outlines with regards to how to protect yourself. Now, I wasn't able to secure a concentrate specialist to discuss these things with, so some of these numbers I don't know, but I would definitely do your research. Brandon Emmett at the MCB meeting brought up that here on every vessel is rated to a minimum of 600 pounds per square inch, he brought up that that would destroy the product, that was too high and that would destroy the product. So remember, these regs are written by people that are not perfectionists. They're not specialists in this kind of stuff. So if you know something, if this doesn't seem right, don't keep your mouth shut. Post a public comment, educate them so they can make it better for the industry as a whole. All right, so moves on. Moves on to 4. It talks about licensed engineer must certify the professional grade closed loop system was commercially manufactured as safe for intended use. So it talks about all of these different things with regards to different engineering places and things like that. Also talks about it must be certified in the fire protection world. So here's some different certifying places for that. Talks about that. And it gives just some basic outlines of some safety manufacturing ideas and things. Again, I'm not going to pretend to know it because I'm not a specialist. So how that may work in the real world versus how it works in the black market is going to be 2 totally different things. Move on to 555, which is required laboratory testing. Collecting a sample, preparing an affidavit showing that the sample was randomly selected, provide the affidavit and keep a copy for the business records, transport the sample, and in the meantime, segregate the entire batch of product until that testing sample comes back. This is again going to be a workflow issue. So trying to figure out how quickly that testing is going to come back between the transport, how quickly you can resell that product, and how quickly your cash flow can keep going. 560 is another controversial issue, potency limits per serving and transaction. Marijuana product manufacturing facility may not prepare any product with potency levels exceeding the following. So 1, for a single serving of marijuana, 5 milligrams. Now, I'm a relatively new user. I will admit it. I've only been using about 3 years, but 5 milligrams is extremely low, extremely low. 5 milligrams is I almost feel like they took the 10 milligrams in Colorado and let's be a little more restrictive and just cut that number in half. Let's see what happens. So I don't feel like the 5 milligrams really represents anything of a public safety concern, and maybe just take it back to the 10 milligrams. But in this case also on 2, it says in a single package unit of marijuana product to be eaten or swallowed, not more than 10 servings or 50 milligrams of active THC. Now, once again, I understand that this is a world of recreational cannabis, recreational marijuana. So we don't pay much attention, or the state doesn't pay much attention to medical users. However, hate to break it to everyone, we also have a medical marijuana registry system, so we can't ignore it completely. Let's be realistic. So what about medical users? 50 milligrams? Not a lot in the term of really high medical users needed. So definitely something that needs to be discussed and changed around. I don't have any suggestions yet on how it should happen. My public comment is still a couple weeks off, but or a week off, but think about that. What's going to be some better suggestions for milligrams and potency? Do we even need to have it? And then there's this line for a single unit of marijuana concentrate maximum of 1 gram. So when you're selling or when you're, I guess, from a product manufacturing to a retail, that your serving sizes can be no more than 1 gram for concentrate. I would assume hash oil, something of that nature. It's kind of a sentence out there by itself, so it's a bit confusing. Goes on to the packaging thing, much like we talked about in the last situation. Protect the product from contamination, 4 milliliter or greater plastic, heat sealed, no open easy corner, child resistant, must be opaque. Again, the opaque situation, the consumer's going to want to know what's in their product. So I'm not a fan of the opaque situation. Sometimes in the edibles situation, I guess I am, because kids are really going to see a cookie and think cookie and want to eat cookies. So, okay, I can see opaque situation in the edibles, but when it comes to concentrates and dry product, what it looks like is essential to its sale. So clear hash oil is much more worthy than, and much more value oriented than dry herb, or sorry, than non-clear. So having the customer to be able to see that in advance is really important. They want to know what they're getting. So it's important for that. All right. Again, 4 on the top of page 16 says the packaging must be resealable to child-proof standards. I really wish they would change the word child-proof to child-resistant, because nothing is child-proof. I have a 2-year-old, nothing is child-proof. Child-resistant, much more reasonable. That, we tried. We absolutely put forth our best effort, but that kid's really smart, right? So we just, I don't know, just feel child-resistant would be a better option. Goes on to say some different transportation plans and how you must generate a transport manifest from the marijuana product. Talks about labeling of marijuana products. And then here in A, it says, with each production lot of marijuana products sold, a marijuana product manufacturing facility must disclose in writing the name of the licensed marijuana testing facility that performed any required test and results of each required test. But it doesn't explain what a production lot is. It doesn't give a definition of a production lot. So our production lots going to vary from company to company? Is there going to be any type of a consistency for that? I didn't see any type of place where a production lot was very clearly defined. So once again, it says you can't label it as organic because you can't confirm it with the USDA. It talks about what kind of labeling and what's going to be required on that labels. I swear these labels are going to wrap around the entire product. It's going to be great. But lots of things on the labels there. And then let's see here. And then it finishes that section with, if a marijuana product manufacturing facility ships wholesale marijuana products from a lot of marijuana product that has not been tested for each contaminant listed in D2 of this section, the label for that lot must include a statement identifying each contaminant listed for which the batch was not tested. Once again, the reasoning here is, I believe, consumer protection. I believe Ms. Franklin mentioned that the consumer has the option to say, hey, well, I'm going to buy this product because it has been tested for all of these things, versus this product that has not been tested for all of these things. So for the production facility, for the cultivation facility, these are things that are going to have to be considered financially. Because, of course, the extra testing is going to require some extra expense. Will that extra expense be worth it to justify more sales to the consumer? And that'll be a question that will simply have to be defined in time. It's not something that can be defined right out of the gate, I think. But it may be something where better testing and full testing in the beginning, and maybe ease it back as time goes on, as the whole industry becomes more regulated, more consistent, so we're not worried so much about contaminants. I don't know what the answer is to that, but I do feel like it is an attempt to protect the consumer or give the consumer options for that. Kind of like the choice between organic and GMO in the storefronts, the consumers can, and I'm sure there will be a price difference too, and that's something that they can consider as well. So, okay, so that is Article 5, very quick and to the point. Article 6 we'll cover, I'm thinking tomorrow, maybe later today we'll cover Article 6. But Article 6, I'm really going to breeze through that one. If you want to open a testing facility, you have more of a scientific mind than I do. And there's a couple of things that I've been brought up from the people that I've interviewed that need to change. So I'll discuss those things. But in the meantime, have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you next time.